Okay, go ahead.
You're recording?
Yes, I'm recording.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a weird episode in my car of Relic History. I want to talk briefly about disease. Very briefly about disease. And move on to something else so I can just get this shit out of my head and onto a video. Totally unscripted, so I'm going to get stuff wrong, and that's fine. That's life. Disease is huge in history, and a lot of people don't give it enough credit because everybody thinks, oh, well, man is the ultimate dominator of the earth, and man is the one that wages the war and wins the day. And disease has just kind of been there this whole time and silently just done stuff for us that could change that completely alter history as we know it if it just wasn't there at particular times. You look at, colonization of North America and the disease that it brought to the native population and wiped most of them out before they could even fight back. What if the disease didn't affect them like that? Would we not have, Canada, the United States and stuff? Would it be different? Because they would have had the population to maybe fight back. Who knows? Probably not, but it would have definitely been a harder go for the Europeans to silence the natives. That's for damn sure, if disease wasn't a factor. You look at, African slavery, and you look at, wars in general, there's disease everywhere. It kills more than war ever could. But disease in itself doesn't necessarily, scare many people. Cancer has been around forever. Syphilis, if you're not very careful. For God's sakes, herpes and stuff like that has been around for so long that we haven't mentioned in stuff that the ancient Greeks wrote. Like, just because they like to bang each other, and there's disease. It's rare when you get things that affect a global scale and end up actually in the history books. And those are called pandemics. And realistically, up until now, we've had three major, arguably four way back, but I'm not going to count it, pandemics that have affected humanity in enough of a way that it's ended up in the history books, and they're well enough known to the fact that even my current camera person at least is going to know two of them.
I think I know some of them.
The three main ones are the Justinian plague, the bubonic plague or Black Death, and the Spanish flu. Those are the three main ones that you think of when pandemic is brought up in a context of history. Those are the three big ones. The Justinian plague, because it ravaged, most of what we know as history at that time, which was the Romans that were writing it. So they obviously embellished it and made sure that, oh, woe is me. You've got the Black Death, which was horrible and did kill, up to 50% of Europe, which is pretty insane when you think about it. That is a lot of people.
Lots of people.
And the Spanish flu, because it's very recent. The Spanish flu only happened about 102 to 101-ish years ago, in 1918 and early 1919. And that's the one I want to focus on a little bit right now, is the Spanish flu in particular. The Spanish flu, side note here, despite its name, did not originate in Spain. They're pretty sure it's a North American.
Why is it called the Spanish flu?
I will tell you why it's called the Spanish flu.
Okay, great.
Actually. They're pretty sure it originated in North America, but they actually don't know for sure where it came from. Personally, the few theories that float around, I think it came from the trenches, because World War I was in full swing at that time and shit was nasty. I think it came from the trenches. But anyway, whatever. The Spanish flu, the reason it's called the Spanish flu, by the way, too, before I continue here. So at the time that the Spanish flu really took prominence, World War I was in full swing. So you have the major world powers shooting at each other somewhere in France or Belgium or who fucking cares what front they're on. War sucked. A lot of people died. Spain was not in World War I. It was neutral at that time, and it was actually a monarchy at that time as well. So what happened is because a lot of press in the major nations of the world was very constricted due to the war effort and not wanting to, it was basically just all propaganda, right? Go us. So Spain, because they weren't involved, had free press. So when the disease hit Spain and actually made their king, Alfonso, I believe he was Alfonso II, very, very ill. In fact, he almost died. That press went worldwide, and then people thought it was just especially bad in Spain, and people at that time thought it originated in Spain. Boom, Spanish flu.
Oh, makes sense.
That's why. Generally, a lot of things like that happen. The Black Death, for example, was called like the Frankish plague in Britain, the Polish plague in Italy, the Italian plague in France. They just like to blame each other for their own misgivings and shit. If they can't blame God, they blame the guy that doesn't talk like them that lives next door. Generally what humans do throughout history, disease, war, doesn't matter. It's what we do. We suck in that capacity. We'll blame the guy that talks weird. Whoever's in power at that time will blame the guy that talks weird. It's how shit happens. Anyway, the Spanish flu is interesting because of what's happening right now. And what's happening right now, of course, the only way you haven't heard of what's going on right now is if you took some sort of weird, like... like some sort of weird New Year's resolution to hermit until mid-May, and you're just finding out about this shit now because you've been living in a cabin in the middle of fucking nowhere for like 6 months.
Even then, they probably have heard of it.
And even then, somebody probably sent somebody on horseback to yell at you and be like, hey, there's a plague, don't come home. Just stay out here, you're better off. In fact, can I stay here? Anyway. COVID is interesting because COVID, when you look at COVID and when you look at the Spanish flu in particular, we actually have data on the Spanish flu because we were taking, notes at that time. Science was not perfect, but hey, at the very least, we weren't just throwing cocaine at people. Oh, wait, we were. Never mind. Sorry. At the very least, we weren't telling people to smell flowers and hopefully they won't die of Black Plague. A little bit better than throwing cocaine at people. Look, Hitler injected meth into his soldiers, okay? I think cocaine is not the biggest problem we had at that time in history. But anyway, the Spanish flu and COVID are very, very, very similar. And they're not exactly the same. There are, key differences, which is why they're not like, hey guys, it's the Spanish flu too. No, it's not. It's a coronavirus, which is different than what the Spanish flu was, which was more of a traditional influenza. But the Spanish flu infected the respiratory system, caused pneumonia, which was the biggest killer. COVID does the same thing, the exact same thing. It infects the respiratory system to a point where it causes pneumonia, especially in weaker, immunocompromised people, and kills them, generally. Mostly it's immunocompromised, but of course we know for a fact that it's killing other people, nurses and stuff like that are generally young and healthy are dying from this in hospitals. We know its infection rate as well is a little higher than Spanish flu, and COVID as well has, what the hell was I going to say? Not a slightly higher mortality rate. Infection rate is slightly higher. The mortality rate right now for COVID and Spanish flu is very similar, which is a little bit sketchy. Spanish flu, all said and done, killed somewhere between 17 million and 50 million people. There was some weirdo who actually worked for the WHO, which was, again, weird, that claimed that the Spanish flu killed 100 million people. That is completely not in anything I can find. The most I can find that was accounted and accredited for is 50 million, and the least I can find is 17. So 100 million is way off base, like just way the fuck off base. If you're wondering, you're like, oh, hey, that guy on the W. No, he's fucking, I don't know what the hell he was doing, if he was just stressed out, but whatever. Anyway, we'll give him a pass, poor fellow. But anyway, and it infected 500 million people-ish worldwide. That's a death rate of somewhere in and around 7 to 8%, which is about what COVID is supposed to be. Of course, we've seen higher and lower percentages depending on how countries reacted and how fast they reacted. For example, Canada, some Scandinavian countries, Sweden is not one of them because they did some weird thing that actually ended up getting more of them killed.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, they didn't lock down anything. They just kind of let it go, and now they have a bunch of dead people on their problems. But, Canada and certain Northern European nations and stuff really hunkered down and kept that death rate low, which is great. And some nations like the U.S. have just done fucking nothing and are now paying for it. What?
They're ingesting bleach.
Yeah, okay, okay, that's where the Americans have gotten to, where they're like, well, if COVID's not going to kill me, the bleach will. At least I'll die clean, I guess. When Lysol has to make a statement to not eat their fucking products, you have an issue, guys. Like, what are you doing? Who listens to that? Like, genuinely, who listens to that?
Have you seen the Trumptini?
Yes, I have seen the Trumpini, and don't drink it. Oh my god, Lord. Oh,
It has a Tide Pod in it.
I know it has a Tide Pod in it. Anyway, COVID-19 and Spanish flu have a lot of similarities. And it's a little scary because the Spanish flu did something that scared a lot of people. It had 3 humps. So its initial infection in 1918, which really affected the Spanish, where we got the name from, and then a really big center one and a smaller than all 3 of them final little bump. The major one happened at the very end of World War I. So November, December of 1918 is when the second hump started. What happened and why it was so bad was the virus mutated, which is totally possible for any virus to do, especially when it's meeting blowback. So we start finding something that is helping suppress it, but it's not a stopper. The virus could mutate to then not have that suppressant affected anymore. It's a possibility. Or it's not spreading fast enough, it wants to spread faster, and it mutates into airborne or waterborne, or, mutates in a way that gives it a different symptom, And,
So like Plague Inc.
Yeah, kind of like Plague Inc., where you can modify your thing. It'll modify itself over time, and that's what Spanish flu did. It mutated into a deadlier version of itself. And when everybody came home from World War I, they were wanting to, of course, celebrate and be happy that, young men aren't dying anymore. So they were partying in the streets, and guess what happened?
Everybody died.
Everybody died. Everybody got infected. That was by far the biggest infection rate of Spanish flu throughout its entire whole campaign, I guess, of infecting people was December of 1918. And it overwhelmed the U.S. healthcare system. It overwhelmed most of Europe that was destroyed thanks to war, and killed a whole bunch of people. And COVID is very similar to that. We have come into the first hump. We are starting to crest that first wave pretty well, at least where I'm sitting at in Canada. There's been no cases of COVID in my region for quite some time. Of course, we're still...
Punch buggy no return.
Thanks for the punch buggy. Wow. It hasn't been a case in my area for quite a while, as far as we're aware, which is really good. And things look to be looking up for the summer, which is great. However, a second wave of COVID is expected to come in the fall when it cools down, because influenzas are affected by heat. Yeah, it's not the regular flu. It doesn't work like the regular flu. It doesn't feel like the regular flu because it isn't, but it is still an influenza type of virus. So it's still going to slow down with the heat. The infection rate is going to slow, plus all the distancing measures, plus all the precautions in place with cleaning is going to, basically bring it to a near halt over the summer. However, if we let our guard down in the fall, and as soon as it starts to ramp up again, we don't immediately go back into what we're doing right now, it's going to kill a lot more people, and it's going to be way worse. And I don't really want that. Do you want that?
No.
No. So stay the fuck home. Go home.
As you are sitting in your car.
As I'm sitting, we went to get groceries and stuff, and I run a side business. I need to ship stuff out. It's stuff I have to do, right? Mm-hmm. I have to do it. I run a side business selling video games. I can't not ship shit off. I need to pay my bills. Damn it. So,
but yes, stay home.
Stay home. Wash your hands. Listen to health authorities, not your Uncle Joe on Facebook, who watched a couple of YouTube videos and now is a conspiracy theory master. Listen to the health officials. Listen to the people you should be listening to, the WHO, whoever that is.
You mean who?
Shut up. Get the vaccine when it's available if you can. If you can't, hope and push for people that can to get it, to help that herd immunity for you and for the rest of us as well, so we can get over this and resume at least somewhat normal lives again. Nothing will be normal after this. Absolutely not.
It'll be a new normal.
It'll be a new normal, because even with COVID vaccinated in a way, we have opened ourselves up to how vulnerable we really are as a species and how close we can come to literally dying.
Punch buggy no return.
Stop. It's the same one. And how close we've actually come to being essentially destroyed by something microscopic. If COVID was a more deadly disease, we would be in way worse of a situation. But thankfully, it's not. Thankfully, we can cope. And thankfully, if we flatten the curve, we can have enough beds for those that need it to survive, to keep that death rate in that 2, 3, 4%, and not 20%. So keep safe. Little history lesson on diseases. Little shit going on with the COVID. Stay safe. And I'll see you all again next time. Peace.
Bye, people.